Hey everybody, welcome to Drum Machine Vibes. I go by Even Though.
I go by the name of Byron G.
And we are producers, engineers for Hellhound Publishing.
There it is.
And today's episode is episode 3, Styles and Techniques.
Let's go, baby.
So we've both migrated from the East Coast to another coast, and anybody who listens to hip-hop will tell you that, you know, you throw a dart at the map, you hit one style, you throw a second dart, you hit another style. You know what I mean? So, I went to Central Florida, which is like its own little subclimate down there. But you went to Sacramento, so let's talk about how like that influenced our individual styles and what we picked up while we were down / over there.
So when I went to Sacramento, honestly, like music-wise, before I moved there, I heard it was like a really good jazz scene. I was like, that's sweet, because I love to sample jazz, so let's go. You know?
Nice.
And at the time, it was like the most diverse city in the country. So to pinpoint one specific like genre that's popping out there, it's impossible because there's just so many different influences, so many different styles, so many different genres, obviously. And I couldn't pinpoint one, but there was definitely a huge niche out there for like the underground boom bap sample based style. So that was cool. And also I was kind of split between two sides. So like my buddy Carlo and them were, like I just said, super into like the sample based, had MPCs, boom bap-ish, unquantized drums and stuff. And my other good friend 3D was more about like the trappier style, slowing it down to like a 70 tempo, which I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like, it was cool, man. It was definitely a big mixture. At the time, I was super into like underground New York City, so going out there definitely opened up my mind, and I experimented with everything you can imagine when it came to like musical styles and stuff like that.
So neither of those styles that you mentioned were like something that you would specifically think of on the West Coast. Did you have any sort of like actual things that you would deem like California type influence, or is it mostly like based on the people who brought styles from elsewhere that you were hanging out while you were out there?
I guess it was more of that. I did have one friend who was like super like, yo, if you're not talking Too Short, if you're not talking E40, like, get out of my face. But he was cool as hell. I could say like maybe melody wise, I started like playing a lot more while I was out there. So like piano, kind of like that West Coast type piano vibe I started using a lot. So
for sure.
But dude, so on to you in Central Florida, because Florida is weird, man. It's kind of like its own specific, I feel like it has its own sound. It's got its own, like all the artists that flourish out of Florida. Like they're not, you can't like pinpoint them, be like, hey, he has like an ATL sound, or you know what I mean? Like they have like their own thing. So how did that influence you and the way that you produce?
Well, what I found out when I was down there is that it was very much like a melting pot of different cultures and influences. So it's almost like the different parts of town represented the different styles. Like you would have like a part of town that's a little more affluent, and the people that I knew who lived in that area that rapped, they would rap about certain things, you know? And then the people who lived just right on the outskirts in the hood, they'd rap about some other shit. And all these styles, like one dude is from, you know, Michigan, the other dude's from, Louisiana, like, and so you got all these different styles coalescing, and then somebody will be like, yo, let's make a beat on the spot. So I'll be like, almost how I did when I was in like a Uber driver. I'd be like, what music do they want to hear? I'd be like, what type of hi-hats do they like, like, so that's where we get into like technique a little bit. So So when we talk in style and how it blends into technique, I would say that something like hi-hats is where you really see where you are on the map.
Oh
almost.
my God, I 1000% agree with you. It's so funny too.
Yeah, some shit that I picked up while I was down there was obviously some like ATL style, you know, Drummer Boy, fucking, you know, Zaytoven.
Oh yeah,
those guys.
Oh
you know?
man, he was at the top.
So it was like using like small hi-hat sounds, but making them sound like long like sprinkler sounds, you know, the sprinkler hi-hats or the money counter hi-hats, you know, shit like that. So, and once you had that, you're like, okay, it's a trap beat, and then that's almost the canvas. No, you don't start with it, but that's like where you build around it. So you're like, I've established this layer of an element, like a parfait.
Okay. Yeah.
Shout out to Shrek. Like if you had a sample like someone like Harry Fraud would do, like, and he's got the trap hi-hats on there. You've got, or like Big Crit would do that. You know what I mean? You add the sample to sort of juxtapose like what you think to expect with that hi-hat. So that's the type of shit that I got big into Crit while I was down there, because not only were there other people from Mississippi that I knew, but it was just, I was in the South. So it's just like I could really like more embrace what he was talking about. So when it came to hi-hats, like, you were on, what type of shit were you on before and after you left Sacramento?
Either like an 8th or 16th, like the or the or the I back in the day, like I was always like the something like that, you know what I mean? It would have like a double up on one of them, but that's kind of still where I'm at now. I just I don't like it too crazy, you know, too crazy with the hi-hats.
Let's say regionally we've established like what we would consider like southern or trap type hi-hats of being like fast with like a short hi-hat sound. The what the like New York and Midwest type hi-hats, more like Chicago and New York, like the hi-hats are more real sounding because they use more like sample type shit. So it's more the open hi-hats, the pedal, the closed hi-hat. You can differentiate in the sounds a little more. Not to say that a trap beat doesn't have multiple hi-hat sounds, but it's like you can tell parts of a drum kit,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
In Houston, they're, you know, obviously known for their like chopped and screwed shit,
right? Which
is essentially put them on the map. So it's so influential, like the certain techniques and styles that have come out of there, that a rapper from the UK called Dizzy Rascal, he came on. So the song was called H-Town.
Okay.
It was a decent tempo, and it featured Bun B and Trey the Truth.
Can't go wrong there.
So I was just like, if you were from another country and you knew this part of another country had a certain style, and you were picking a beat, you would look for certain things, right?
Yeah.
So it stands to reason that like he picked like a beat that was almost stereotypical of like that time in the geography. It's like it was, you know, 2008 or 11 or some shit, you know. You hear like the DJ scratch sounds in there. You hear like a woodblock sound in there. You hear like, you know, just a steady hi-hat with maybe a couple like 16th notes, nothing. They weren't on the heavy trap, you know, duplicates, but they
have
just
a certain swing to it where it's just like smooth, like you know what I mean?
Yeah. It was a very, very chill beat, and like every 8 bars or so, it would go boom, like fucking just like reverse it, you know what I mean? Like, but I definitely try to bring East Coast influence to other genres, if not vice versa, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably like the biggest thing for me now when I'm producing is I feel like I have stayed in a comfort zone for probably the past year. And I think it's time to step outside of that and experiment with different sounds. Like my main thing this year, I think, is I don't want to quantize anything because it's just too easy. And
your Serato wants to do that for you. It wants to.
Like it's tough because, like, obviously Serato has a grid. I don't really use it often, but when I do, it's just like, let me right click and then set it to the 16th. Right. I want to step outside my comfort zone when it comes to that. And also playing, like, I don't want to rely as much on the software. I want to actually learn, like, to hone my own type of swing and I need to learn how to play more out of pocket.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that's probably just the type of parameter that somebody like the homie Trip Seat would love to impose on himself, and then do like like we had discussed with him on the IG live version of DMV, which is still up on Instagram. We talked about having creativity with limitations or parameters, self-imposed or otherwise. So it sounds like your resolution is to have more imperfection.
Yeah.
Which sounds great. I guess. Wow. Now I feel like I need to have a production resolution for the year.
Now that we're talking about it a lot, doing these podcasts and doing the beat breakdowns and stuff like that, like, I really want to learn more this year.
Yeah.
And to bring back to our conversation when it comes to, like, regions and South and East Coast, West Coast. So when it comes to, like, bass, I think bass is also one of those things, like a hi-hat, where up here, like in the New York style, it's typically, especially back then, back in the 90s and 2000s, it was more of like a synth, zero high-end type of, like, bass, you know what I mean, type of bass line. And now everybody's using 808s, and there's different sounds and pitches and stuff like that for 808s.
Right.
But
I think if you were to, like, look at the map at any given decade and be like, what kind of low end were they using? You go to, California in the 90s, they're using, like, NWA, they're using, like, a synthesized bass off of Moog or some shit,
Right, yeah.
And then you go up to New York, same exact day, you got a homie making something on an MPC that's got a bass line sample from fucking, Charles Mingus or some shit.
It's like upward stand-up bass type.
Like
deal.
Exactly. So, and then you fast forward, 30 years, and you go to New York, and they're using 808s. You go to Cali, they're using the stand-up bass.
Oh, yeah, like you think. Okay.
Yeah, like it's all switched around now, you know what I mean? Like, and then you go down to Atlanta, it's just, who knows? I feel like when you get oversaturated in any sort of thing, you create outsiders who just want to sort of do their own thing. Because that's how something big starts, is by a counterculture, you know what I mean? So like people like JID or like Joey Badass or Kendrick, or these people who, like, could go the typical route of what's happening in that area at that time, but they just kind of, like, are so counterculture, so on the outside, that they create a following in that way.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. It's tough. I mean, for me right now, it's like when you talk about, like, mainstream and stuff like that, it's like, it's so tough. Like the thing we were laughing about the other day with Snoop, like, I don't know who came up with that, but everybody's doing it now. That's how I feel right now with, like, drums. Everybody's using the 808s, mainstream wise. I'm talking about,
Yeah.
Obviously, there's millions and millions of producers and stuff like that who don't, but for the most part, you put on a radio station, you're hearing that same pitched 808. You're hearing the same clap snare, the same hi-hats, West Coast, East Coast, down south, all using that type of shit.
Yeah.
So,
all right, we're going to take this opportunity to take a short break and tell you a little bit about some of the projects that we've been putting out through Hellhound Publishing.
And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the styles that we incorporate as producers, as well as styles that we wish we could incorporate as producers.
Or that we want to get better at. But here's some ads.
What's good, everybody? I go by the name of Byron G, and if you head on over to hellhoundpublishing.com, you're going to be able to check out all the projects that Hellhound has released. Right now, you're listening to the new single called Scary Stories, which is off Meet Me in Gate City by Cody Pope and myself, Byron G. Yeah. Now you're listening to Illest Motherfucker Alive from Deja Solo's debut project, A Kid Named Solo, produced by Byron G. And if you guys are just chilling, maybe trying to get a few bars off, you could throw on Rain Check, which is an instrumental album by myself, Byron G. Now back to Drum Machine Vibes. All right, guys, welcome back to Drum Machine Vibes, episode 3. We're talking about techniques and styles, and even though.
Yeah.
What are some techniques and styles that you incorporate into your beat making?
Well, one that I definitely like to do in almost every beat, if not just these lo-fi styles ones or the East Coast more boom bap style ones, is I think one that we can all attribute to like a Dilla type sound, which is the ducking of a sample or an instrument or the entire fucking beat except for the kick. So for anybody who's listening and watching who's unfamiliar with the term ducking, what I'm doing is using a compressor sidechain and an auxiliary bus in tandem with a kick and another sound or series of sounds, and making the kick take the place of those sounds and have those sounds kind of duck out and make room for the kick. So what Dilla is known for is having like a slower release. So when the sound comes back in, it takes a second. It's definitely one that I do, and it's in a way it's something that can be overdone for effect, but it's something that, like with auto-tune or reverb, like if you crank it up to the max, you're gonna get a totally different vibe. What's one that you do in most of yours?
So a lot of the times I'll take like my melody, like the different sounds of my melodies, and I'll bust those out and put like little compression on there to kind of like have them all sit nicely together, and then I'll do that with my drums. Actually, this is definitely one. So what I've been doing lately with vocals, with drums, with my melodies, with not so much bass because there's already distortion in it, but I will take like an effects rack with distortion, and I'll kind of like nudge it in and kind of like mix it into my main drum track or vocal track or whatever it is. I've been using a lot of distortion.
So
lately.
I had a few questions. So when you do that, how many compressors and buses do you have going? Do you have just one for the melodies, one for the drums?
Yeah. I'll usually compress my drums. Once I bounce out all my stems and I use like a Logic or something like that, I'll usually take my melody and I'll throw like a compressor on all of those, and then I'll take my whole drum track and throw a different compressor on those.
Damn. My second question was the distortion that you had mentioned. Do you put that on any drums regardless, or do you like do it on some that are already a little dirty or some that are pristine to make them dirty, or what do you do?
Any drum regardless, I'll usually do it, and I'll find the right settings and types of, because like I said, I use an effects rack a lot, so I'll, whatever those sounds are, I'll find like a distortion and like a filter that kind of like tailors to that specific sound of drums.
So a style that, man, I can't get enough of this, and I might be giving a little too much sauce away with this one, but we'll edit it out if we think it is. I call it like the multi-snare effect, where the first snare on the 2 and the snare on the 4 aren't the same.
Okay.
So the first one's either more powerful or like a different sound, and then the second one is less powerful or a different sound. You know what I mean? Do you ever do that in yours?
Sometimes. If I do, I'll usually just like layer the original snare that I have with another clap or something else that gives it a different feel.
Yeah.
But I do that. Not a lot, not a shit ton, but I definitely have done it a bunch in the past.
I've done it a shit ton. I'm sorry.
Wow, that's cool, man.
All right, so what's one of yours?
I like to, like, you know that old school like second half of the verse, or like right after the hook, where it just jumps into the verse and there's like a filter on it, where it's just like it's the same sample, but it's just has like a high pass filter on it.
Yep, like Rakim shit does it a lot too. That's stretching, my dude. It's not literal stretching, but it's like making the most of what you have.
Super, like, that's a P-Rock thing.
What about stuff that's not exactly a
like
sample
techniques
from
or something?
That? Because, like, so for example, I'll start off with like brushes, like drum brushes.
Okay.
So that's definitely like, you know, old jazz, fucking like crooners, Frank Sinatra. I like how that sounds, and it brings a certain quality, especially in lo-fi, you know. So
like I said, probably the bass lines, and then also bass lines of like jazz, and then also probably just like the drum sounds from like soul records, from like Curtis Mayfield's, and
it's like James Brown. Almost James Brown.
I love that. I love like the melodies from, I feel like I definitely incorporate from like the 60s and like Motown and stuff like that. Any melody from that era you could play, and I'm like, that's dope, you know. So I mean, once you start producing and engineering and stuff like that, you just listen to things different. Like, you'll listen to a song and one thing in that song, you'll just like, I can't stop paying attention to that one thing. It sounds so dope. What is that? All right, guys, I think this is a good time to take our final ad break, and when we get back, we're gonna talk about, what the fuck are we talking about?
We're gonna do a segment that we haven't figured out yet. Hey everybody, I go by Even Though. Just want to take a break from drum machine vibes to let you know about the album that I produced that was released on Hellhound Publishing. It's called Solstitial. It is a typo. I know it's not a real word, but it's very cool, kind of lo-fi album. And this is one of the beats from it. At the end of 2022, Trip Seat put out a phenomenal album called Carnivora. It's unlike anything you've ever heard until now. No. Until now. You're hearing it now. that boy crazy. Anyways. And now back to Drum Machine Vibes with myself, Even Though, and Byron G. All right, welcome back to Drum Machine Vibes. This is the final segment of episode 3, Styles and Techniques. I'm here with Byron G, my co-host with the co-most. We're going to cut that part out.
The co-host with the co-most.
Byron, why don't you tell them about our final segment?
So in this final segment, we just came up with this, right? We're going to go A to Z, or try to, and try and name a... Are we sticking with rapping, with hip-hop, or...
Yeah, rappers and, you know, hip-hop people.
Okay, so,
you just say the A name and I'll say the B name, and we'll just go back and forth as long as we can. It's,
all right.
It's category
I got you.
style.
All right.
Yeah.
Apathy.
Okay, Big Sean.
Going cunning linguist.
D12.
Ed O.G.
Freddie Gibbs.
Grandmaster Flash.
Hobson.
Iggy Azalea.
No! Ice Cube, dog.
Oh, God.
All right, Jay-Z.
Cooley High.
Lil Wayne.
Master Ace.
Notorious B.I.G.
Omarion.
No! That's
yeah.
R&B, bro.
Hey, come on. He's
You
rapped.
can think of one with O.
All right, you name one. Oh. Exactly.
Obi Trice. Real names, no gimmicks.
Okay.
You take the one after O. You got this.
P Rock.
No.
You every name I'm saying, you're saying no. He raps. He raps.
All right, Pete Rock. I'm sorry.
He raps. He's got some ill 16s. Okay.
All right.
You're on Q.
Oh, Q? Oh, that's fine. Quell. From Quell and Maker,
Okay.
yeah.
Now I'm on
S.
P.
Wait, Q. Q.
Look at it. R.
Yeah.
Run the Jewels.
All right. Slim Thug.
Ooh, okay. T.I.
All right. You God, I guess.
Vic Spencer.
Okay, V. W.
Yeah.
Wale.
Yeezus.
No, W X. X. Young Jeezy.
And then Z. God damn. Is there any Z's out there? All right. I'm looking this up, dude.
I don't know.
Zero.
Dude, I couldn't think of his name.
Oh, man. You got to add this in and be like, wow, we're idiots.
Right.
Zero. Yeah, zero, man.
Zero. We were talking about Houston so much,
I know,
too.
that's what I'm saying.
Because I was thinking about Houston and I couldn't remember dude's name. I was like, his name has a number in it. And I should have been like, duh, there's only one fucking number with Z in it.
You're right.
All right. Let's wrap this shit up, man. We're getting delirious.
This is great.
All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of Drum Machine Vibes with myself, Even Though.
And Byron G.
For Hellhound Publishing.
Hey.
Tune in next time. Have a good one, y'all.
Peace.